2022.
Yeah, this year. What was the best performing asset?
Well, they all kind of sucked, but I don't know why I want to say real estate.
No. Here we go. You ready?
As always.
We're doing this. Hello, everyone. How should we start?
Hello, everyone.
I'm going to say that this is
our
the
names.
first video for our English channel. My name is Mason. This is Adib.
Yeah, I think that works.
I've been here in Canada for this much, I kind of think this is a good mix. I'm kind of a recent immigrant, but you're, what do you call it, second generation? What's your...
Second generation, yeah.
So
But I'm not an immigrant technically, so.
So what is second generation then?
I actually don't know what a second generation immigrant
That's
is.
a very good question, because I always hear that, oh, I'm first generation, I'm second generation. I was like, what does that even mean?
Hey Google, what's a second generation immigrant? Are individuals born and raised in the United States who have at least one foreign-born parent. There we go. So I'm a second generation
You're
immigrant.
second generation, okay.
There you go.
We got an answer to one of our questions already.
You just can't be pulling that out in the middle of the video.
Yeah.
Hey Google.
Hello everyone, my name is Mason. Welcome to our YouTube video, kind of the first YouTube video that I'm posting on the English channel. I've been doing YouTube for the past 2 years, but the content was not English. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't have the confidence. Maybe I wasn't fluent enough in English. I'm still not, but I'm trying. I've been here in Canada for almost 3 years and a half, and Adib, he was born in Canada. So I thought that we both work in finance and we both have our own specific kind of experience, and I thought this is a good mix. Sitting here, sometimes we have very interesting chats, We always take good care of money. We're very diligent when it comes to money.
Yep.
So this was kind of an idea to sit together sometimes and record the interesting ideas we're talking about. We thought that maybe people out there want to hear the type of thinking we have, and maybe they can help us, maybe they can give a comment, maybe it can be helpful. By no means this is not financial advice.
This is not financial advice. Yes.
A friendly chat, kind of
discussion.
Brainstorming, getting it out and see what would be the outcome.
Exactly.
So you go, Adib, how are you doing?
Well, I'm good. How are you, Mason?
We just figured out that Adib is second generation.
Yeah, right before the camera started rolling.
What am I?
You would be a first generation immigrant.
Oh, okay, I'm a
because
first
you
generation.
And I am a second generation immigrant.
Okay.
Which means my parents immigrated here.
My offsprings will be second generation then.
Exactly.
Okay.
Your offspring will be like me.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Sounds
there
good.
we go.
You should be thankful to your parents. A big shout out to
my parents.
To your parents, first of all, and to all of the people who immigrate. That's a very long journey, and their children should be grateful.
Always.
And I want to, before it's completely probably irrelevant, but I want to give a shout out to all the brave men and women in Iran, especially women who are fighting for their freedom.
Absolutely.
I always tell people in Canada that you take it for granted how much peaceful life you have here.
Absolutely.
People in countries like Iran are fighting for their very, very basic rights of what to wear, what to do, and it's way behind that. They're really striving to have the basic economic needs.
Exactly.
Believe me, I know that there are many people who cannot afford to eat meat.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's beside the point. We can make videos about that.
We can talk about the socioeconomic needs of Iran some other time for sure. But
recently, one of the topics that we were discussing a lot is what should we do with the money? First of all, how to make money.
How to make money is one aspect.
But that's beside the point. Making money, we can discuss about it later. If you have money, what to do with it right now?
Where do you put it? Where do you invest it?
Yeah.
What do you buy?
Yeah.
Things like that.
We always have that kind of exchange of ideas. And for today, to kick off, I was thinking about talking about the buying a house situation, because I bought a house almost a year ago. I bought it in November.
This year, it was this year, so it would have been 11 months now, yeah.
It's exactly a year since I bought a house. So I was doing some analysis to see if I made the right decision, which I believe I did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, I got a loan, I got a mortgage.
Yeah, the fear of debt,
And-
having to pay something off, yeah.
Yeah, it's really scary when you have to take that much of debt, because back home in Iran, we can't get that much loan. Maybe you can get 20%
Yeah,
loan,
yeah.
80% you have to put down, but here is the reverse.
Exactly.
You pay down 20% and 80% is
Yeah.
just a loan or mortgage.
It's an interesting thing to think about, is especially when you look at other countries. Like I'm not sure how mortgages apply for like countries that are out east, but at least in North America, the concept of a mortgage can be super complicated or super easy depending on how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that we were talking about right before was the differences between the Canadian and the U.S. market and how that actually affects what you should and shouldn't do with your money. So, for example, you said buying the house this year was a good call so far, right? I would agree with you. I think in general, I think owning a house is a big positive. It's a good place to park your money. Real estate historically goes up over time. It's a great place to put it. But you have a lot of extra cash left over. What do you do with that right now?
Yeah.
Right. What's your first thought? What did you think about that?
So two main questions I have in my mind for today is that first, people are talking about a housing bust, housing market bust.
Yeah.
But for that, I'll explain in a second that we have to consider that there is a huge difference between the American market and the Canadian market. So you YouTube it, what's going to be the future of housing market or buying it? Is this the right decision? I did it. I put the past couple of days, I was watching YouTube videos, but most of the content is for the US.
It is.
And you don't even notice because, you know, they're speaking English, they're saying...
You just assume, like I speak English
And then
too.
you're like, what market? Because housing market is very localized.
Yeah,
You know, you have to really look at your city, your neighborhood, the situation of that specific place.
Yeah.
The second question is that we were talking about is that if you have money, should you lower your mortgage or, I mean, you should pay the money back to the bank?
Sooner than you need to.
Yeah,
right?
this is the kind of thought I have. I have some cash.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do with it. I don't want to put it in the stocks right now.
Yeah.
Again,
Naturally.
this is not financial advice. This is my own personal, you know, chit chat.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was like, should I just lower my mortgage? Because I've watched a lot of videos, I've read a lot of theories that this might not be a bad idea, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And I'll show you my bank statement, how it works.
You can audit
So,
this bank statement.
US and Canada, what differences have you seen?
Okay, well, first off, the mortgage term, that's one of the biggest differences I've seen, is that when you're getting a mortgage in Canada, for example, you're buying, let's say, a $600,000 house, let's just say theoretically, okay? You're putting, in Canada, what's expected, not required, but expected, is a 20% down payment, so you don't have to pay mortgage insurance, which is basically where the bank says, we trust that you'll be able to pay your stuff because you gave us enough money up front. One big thing I noticed with that is that the 5-year terms that mortgages have in Canada versus the 30-year terms that you could just lock into in the US provide a huge disadvantage for us in the Canadian market and a huge advantage for people in the US market.
So basically, when the rate is super, super low in the US, you can lock it for 30 years. You pay the same rate for 30 years, which is fantastic. But here in Canada, you can only lock it for 5 years.
Terrible.
After 5 years, you're at the blessing of the bank. You should see what rate is available at that time.
Exactly. And like that's one thing I was looking into, for example, is that I saw a lot of people online talking about how even with these interest rate increases going on in the US and Canada right now, a lot of them got like the most blessed interest rates on their mortgages, around like 2%, fixed 30 years at the bottom of the COVID like decreases, like the quantitative easing back in like 2020, right? So they're locked into 30-year rates at 2%, never have to stress about anything again. As long as they're employed, they'll be able to pay all their expenses. Here, doesn't matter whether or not you have the money right now, you could get screwed over the next couple months if interest rates start suddenly going up, right? And one thing that introduces, one major risk that introduces in the Canadian market is hitting your trigger rate.
Yeah.
I've already heard of one of my friends, not you, that actually got hit with their trigger rate too, and they just bought the house like maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I want to say.
Shoot.
And already hitting the trigger rate right when you get the house, that's a huge like stressor on your life, right? How do you deal with that? Well, like, what do you do when you hit a trigger rate?
So basically you have to adjust the payments so that it covers the interest. So
Right.
basically you're paying $2,000, now you have to pay $3,000 each month. Just
Yeah, and we
simplify.
to clarify that as well, we should have probably given the heads up that the way a mortgage typically works is that even if your interest rate is variable, you typically pay a fixed amount per month, and then depending on where the interest rate is, more or less of that amount goes towards interest payments, and the remainder goes towards paying down the actual debt you owe. So when interest rates get way too high, suddenly the entire payment, for example, if you're paying $2,000 a month, the entire payment could end up being interest, and none of the money that you pay on a monthly basis goes towards actually paying off your house. So then the bank tells you, okay, we can't keep doing this. This is a bit too scary for us. You need to either pay more money or we need to redo the mortgage, right? And I don't know which one people typically do, because I don't think people hit their trigger rates often.
They increase the payments.
It's typically just increase the payments, right? Now, like, what risk does that put you in if you can't do that?
The bank will automatically increase your payment to the minimum amount that covers the interest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Can you just check the mic? I think it's just
Sliding underneath.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. Most people, they have to voluntarily pay more on a monthly basis to be able to continue keeping their mortgage. Otherwise, which is kind of the goal behind increasing interest rates, they have to sell their house, right? Even if it's at a loss, they have to sell their house, right? And then the question becomes, is it worth it to keep paying? Well, let's say you have a lot of cash saved up. You might not pull in enough on a monthly basis to be able to pay a higher amount if you go from $2,000 a month to $3,000 because you get your trigger rate, right? Let's say you can pay it, but it's not easy. You have a lot of cash saved up to be able to make up for it. How long should you be willing to do that for before you consider just selling the house and moving into an apartment or something more affordable?
I have no idea. That's a very good question. Before that, are you done with the US and Canadian differences? Because you were also mentioning something about the tax benefit.
Oh, yeah. So one other major aspect.
So far it's been, so I think with that kind of easier pathway in the US, people have the tendency to take more risk in the US.
Yeah.
And it could be more reckless, and banks are more willing to lend. So this will increase the risk in the housing market.
Yeah.
While in Canada, banks are more careful. People are more careful probably because they know how tough getting a mortgage is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of increases the downside risk of the US. That's what I believe. That's why everyone is talking about like housing market crashing. It's more probable in the US. On top of that, the tax benefit.
The tax benefits, yeah. So that's an interesting point as well, is that let's say you didn't get lucky and didn't get one of those really cheap 30-year fixed rates in the US, you might still be paying a lot in your mortgage payments on a monthly basis. But one advantage that the US has over Canadians for just regular people like you and me is that US citizens can deduct some of the money that they pay for their mortgage from their income for tax purposes, so they can lower their income and pay less in taxes. Whereas in Canada, if we're paying a high amount on our mortgage, it doesn't matter because that's all cash that goes out of our pocket, and we can't deduct any of that from our income on our taxes. So
unless you're a business.
Unless you're a business, which is, are you really going to go out of your way to open a business just to be able to deduct your mortgage payments? I don't think so. Most people don't, because it goes back to risk, right? It's easier to take risk in the US to do that than it is here, because I mean, our economy relies on the U.S. to a large extent, right? So, keeping that in mind.
So basically, in the U.S., you buy a house, you pay less tax at the end of the year.
That's the end of
at least
that's the end
the
goal,
interest portion. You can say, oh, I'm paying that much interest to the bank, so I should pay less taxes. That interest you're paying is a cost that can reduce your taxes at the end of the year.
So pulling that back into the idea of it's easier to take risk in the US.
Yeah.
You have a lot of cash, right? When you take a loan, usually a loan provides you with even more cash depending on how much cash you already have, right? For example, a mortgage. For every dollar you give on a 20% down payment, the bank is giving you $4 extra, right? To buy a house. That's one way to look at it. Margin, right? For somebody in the US wanting to take a big risk and they have a lot of cash, a question becomes, what do you put your money into? Do you put it into real estate? Do you put it into stocks? Do you put it into, for example, opening a franchise, starting up a business? Things like that are things to consider. What, in your opinion, and this is entirely just you, not like the average person, but what would you rather do in the current economic situation that the US and Canada are in, given the option of, let's say, open a franchise, a pre-established business, start your own business, put it into real estate, put it into stocks, or just hold it in cash?
That's a very good question that I have no idea. Because I was thinking about, okay, to answer that question, I was very much thinking about two options.
Okay.
Either lower my mortgage.
Yeah.
Let's say I have $50,000 right now in my bank.
Yeah.
Should I give it back to the bank and lower my mortgage, especially now that the rates are higher?
Yeah.
Or should I take more mortgage
Yeah.
and buy a new property?
Yeah.
Both of them are tricky. Buying a new property, since I said it's harder to get a mortgage in Canada, I tried. I called my mortgage specialist, and we did all the calculation. I was like, this is going to be an investment property, and the answer was like, you cannot get more money. But in the US, I'm pretty sure if I was in the US, I could be able to buy another property.
Right.
Which puts, again, it makes me a riskier client.
Yeah, it does.
And
it does.
the downside risk on the housing market. At the same time, I was like, you know what, hell with that. I'll just pay back some of my mortgage because I'm paying almost 5%.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, if I pay down $50,000 back to the bank with my current mortgage, with the amount I have, my monthly payment will be lower $100 to $200.
Immediately or when you renew?
Immediately, yeah.
Okay.
Once I pay back. Oh, no, actually, once I renew.
Okay, because actually, I had an exact question about that was, do you think it'd be better, for example, when you have the cash right now, to pay down the mortgage right now, or should you wait till it's closer to your renewal period to do it? Because if you have the cash on hand right now, let's say you just got the mortgage, you got another 4 years before you renew, you could find something better to do with the money in that time, potentially, right? Potentially. Where if you paid down the mortgage, you wouldn't have that cash to be able to get that opportunity. Right?
So basically, you know what? If I pay the money back to the bank, nothing happens. My maturity, so if I have to pay 30 year, it's going to be like 26 year.
26, yeah, it goes down a little bit.
So I was like, why am I even doing this? Why would I give the money back to the bank? On top of that, I showed you in my bank account that when I go to my, I got my mortgage from RBC. When I go to my app, it shows that I've paid off around $10,000 of the mortgage, the principal.
The actual amount you owe.
The actual money that I owed to the bank, I've paid back around $10,000.
Right, yeah.
And it goes to a line that says credit. It's like a line of credit. So the bank says, we owed you that, we lent you that much money.
Yeah.
Now you've paid back 10,000 of it. Whenever you want, you can again,
pull that
out, get 10,000 from us. We will lend it again to you. But here's the catch.
Okay.
Because it's a line of credit.
Yeah.
And my mortgage is around 5%. They say we're gonna lend it out again to you at 7%. So if I go to the bank, I was like, oh, I owe you money. Here is $50,000. And I come back next morning and I say, oh, can you again lend me that $50,000? They're gonna be like, funny. Absolutely, but at 2% higher.
See, to me, that's really funny because that just feels like a trap that they're trying to set you up for. They're like, hey, here's some money. You could take it if you want. I'm not gonna say anything.
It's funny. You have a mortgage and you look at it and paying it back doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't.
So that's the question which I guess we have to find a way for. We have to find an answer. What should I do with my cash? Because apparently paying back the loan, at least for me, for my situation, again, this is not financial advice. This is just chit-chatting because I'm going to different people. I was like, what should I do with my cash?
What should I do with my money, right? I think every time we've talked about this.
A funny fact.
Okay.
2021, a long period of time. What do you think was the best performing asset?
Are we talking about asset group or individual asset?
Individual asset, like assets.
In 2021?
Stocks, bonds, cryptos, gold, commodities. What do you think was the best performing? Sorry, in 2022.
2022.
Yeah, this year. What was the best performing asset?
Well, they all kind of sucked, but I don't know why I want to say real estate.
No.
It was
Cash.
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 Cash is the best. There you go.
If you have held on your, because bonds decline,
Yeah.
stocks decline, crypto,
Yeah.
real estate, everything.
Yeah.
The only thing that did not
Yeah.
decline was
Cash. There you go. Inflation.
There was inflation, but
Why lose 96% when I can just lose 8?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's a question. I think we've talked enough for the first video. It was just a way of saying that, we are putting out all these probably crazy thoughts that no one is interested to listen to.
And it's one thing I've noticed too is that there are a lot of things that we talk about at this age that people around us could be talking about. They could be considering buying a house or could be considering investing, but they've never really thought of it and stopped to talk about it. And I feel like any sort of insight or perspective of how a normal discussion works between two people who like these kinds of topics, how it goes, this provides that perspective. So that was the whole goal behind this episode, was to just really provide a perspective of what it's like to look into these finance topics. And
sorry, sometimes we're so boring. Instead of talking about sports or
which we still do, is just
girls, we just talk about these probably crazy ideas and boring ideas. I hope there is someone out there who would watch this video and benefits. Just don't take it too seriously. This is just,
Please. Please don't.
this is just a chit-chatting.
If you haven't picked it up by now, we both like money a lot. That's
Well, I love money.
Money is great. Money is great.
It's just that we want to make more of it.
Of course.
Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think. This is just the first episode. We're gonna probably be better going forward. Give us your thoughts, comments. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. It's gonna support us. And let's see how it goes.
Absolutely.
And my journey in Canada with the help of Adib.
Yes.
Take care, guys. See you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
That was good, right?
That was good. That was great.
I like this.
That's probably like what,